Hi everyone, this is Karen Lohop again. I want to share with you something about a book that's probably now, oh no, I can surely add, about 8 years old, or subtract, whatever is required. And it may be a book that you may be a lot better acquainted with than I am. Kind of a fascinating little book, and the name of it's Blink, B-L-I-N-K, Blink, like Blink, by Malcolm, oh dear. Just having the name there on my tongue. Gladwell. And the way that it came about, that I'm talking with you about this book right now, is that I have enjoyed a course online called Crack Your Egg. And the gentleman, Hank, H-E-N-K is his name, sends me an email every so now and then and shares some pretty cool stuff. I think I might have even talked about something else that he had shared in a recent blog post. And so when I saw that he had sent me something else, I wanted to open it up and see if I could get a little inspiration out of it, and I feel like I have. Blink is a book that, according to Hank, is about our intuition. And he talked about one of the stories in there, and he talked about how we all experience intuition, that feeling in our gut that lets us know when we've come across truth. I will tell you, as I listened to I think it was 25-minute interview with Malcolm Gladwell, and then I took a look at his site and pulled up some information that I'm going to share with you in a minute. I had I became aware that he suggests that this is not about intuition. In fact, he does not use that word one time in his book, Blink. But I grasp how it is that we all look at things very differently. And he does talk about in this book how a lot of times we frame things, or we put parameters around our thinking before we even think about something, so that our thinking about that is kind of boxed in. Now, of the two types of thinking most of us are acquainted with, conscious thinking and unconscious thinking. If it kind of scares you that I can't think of the word every so now and then, trust me, it doesn't scare you as much as it scares me. And probably, no matter who you are, I'm probably older than you are. And I have spent considerable months with a woman in stage 2 Alzheimer's. So when I start searching around for the word, and it's always, somewhere, I take note. And I suppose if you think that kind of thing is catching, you probably ought to leap off this video right now. So the other type of thinking would be unconscious thinking. He described it, actually took his hands and put them together and described it, the unconscious, as being in a box in our mind. I tend more to think of it as kind of spread out and deep, like maybe even a lake or something like that. Although none of us need our brain cells wet, I'm pretty sure. But anyway, he says, in reference to being asked what is Blink about, it's a book about rapid cognition, or the thinking that happens in the blink of an eye. We all have that. I consider it judgment. And I'm happy to be cognizant and aware that that is subconscious. It is not what I direct out of my conscious mind. And it is just as likely to be wrong as not. It certainly is likely to be outdated. That's not what Malcolm Gladwell taught me. Um, but as you know, I'm working on my subconscious, and I'm trying to change out all the old rules that I don't want to be following anymore. I don't believe are correct for me anymore. So anyway, he says that blink is about those 2 seconds where your mind can jump to a series of conclusions or judgments, as I said. Here it is. He said you could also say that it's a book about intuition, except that I don't like that word. This is Malcolm Gladwell saying that. In fact, it never appears in Blink. Intuition strikes me as a concept we use to describe emotional reaction, that gut feeling. So now that you have a little bit of an idea, I just want to share a couple of fun stories. I'll try and make this really quick. He talks about how it came about that initially it began because he decided to grow his hair long. He was a relatively young-looking man 8 years ago. I'm sure he still does look that way. Prior to his growing his hair out, though, he kept it really close cut, and he spoke in the interview of saying that people treated him like a nerd. And so he decided to grow his hair out. His hair grows out kind of like an afro. It grows out really bushy. And interestingly, when I first looked at the video, I looked at how we usually do, kind of small, and I thought, wow, is that his hair? So I made it large. It was a dark video, and it was still a little bit too distinguished, but yes, it was his hair. But what he talks about is that as soon as he started to grow it out, his life changed. He hadn't had any speeding tickets before that time, and then he started to accumulate a lot. And he was getting pulled aside by airport security. Always a really fun experience. And he also was in Manhattan one day when a police van pulled up. 3 officers pulled out. Said they were looking for a rapist, and he looked a lot like the rapist. He took a deep breath, and he very calmly stated, well, the rapist is considerably older than I look, considerably heavier than I look, and the hair is not at all the same. And I had to chuckle. Well, it's not funny. I'm sure it wasn't funny for him then. But the chuckle was, I've seen myself do that kind of thing. I have my mind made up what I'm going to think. And go ahead and think that. Sometimes I go ahead and think that when I'm studying all evidence. I'm even practicing or attempting all evidence to the contrary, as I'm learning something new and I want it to work out, and I'm doing it as I go. And perhaps you can relate to that. He also talked about the taste test between Coke and Pepsi, and how, well, he demonstrated. He had a couple cups in front of him, and he actually, for some reason, crossed his hands as he took the one cup and took a sip, and then he took the other cup and took a sip. And he said that Pepsi had known something that Coke had not known, or had not realized, or paid attention to, when they started that taste test. And that is that people will take sip taste, and in a sip taste, almost always prefer the sweet. But if they actually drank the can all the way to the bottom, Coke drinkers would still prefer the Coke. I thought that was very, very interesting. He's trying to I lost it. You know how many scroll you scroll like that. He's trying to figure out those kinds of situations where it's important and necessary, in fact, to be careful with powers of rapid cognition. He had worked with doctors in one of the hospitals, I think it was in Boston, surgeons, and he has worked with some police forces in pointing out how rather, I guess when you're in a group, you're more likely to come to certain judgments than when you're alone, which sounds to me like, what was it? This this may not come to me, but thinking about um, mob behavior, when you think things that you wouldn't think on your own, you wouldn't allow yourself to think on your own. Well, I wanted to share a little bit of that with you. Suggest that perhaps we could chat a bit. I'd love to have you comment on my video. I'd love to have you comment on my blog, because this video will go on a blog, and that will be on www.kar-en, so my name, split up with a hyphen, kar-en.com. And perhaps you could engage me in your thoughts. Thank you.